Check 1 2. Check 1 2. It looks like it's recording. So, okay, I guess that's the very first tip is before you actually finalize recording, have your equipment ready to go. Levels are balanced. Do a check recording, a test recording. Just a 10-second thing, the testing, sibilance. Making sure that your recording gear, your whole thing is working. And then erase that and then hit the record button again. So I'm going to start out by talking about the X-Men. This reminds me because something that I noticed when I put a recording device or a microphone in front of somebody's face and I tell them, just start talking. Talk about something that you're passionate about. Talk about something that happened in your day. Talk about anything. It's almost like one of those, I remember when I was a kid, it was the IQ test in school. And I was so self-conscious that when the tester said, just say any word that comes into your mind, say as many words as fast as you can, I stumbled because I thought about it. Once you get used to podcasting, you shouldn't have to think about it that much. Actually, right now, I have and I actually talk about the process during my podcasts because I think the audience will want to know about that stuff. People want to know behind the scenes stuff. So if they can learn, or if they not even learn, if they can know how you're going about your business, it makes it more real for the audience. At least from my point of view, whenever I see like a making of video, going back to Star Wars again, like they had these amazing, documentaries that lasted longer, like 10 times longer than the actual movies. And I love that stuff. And you can watch it over and over again. And you learn, especially if you're kind of interested in how people make movies or you're interested in being in the movie business, that's the best way to learn. And it's also entertaining at the same time. So I'm going to jump to another tip. If you don't hesitate to include something that's really fun for you to do in your podcasts. Go back to Star Wars again. If you're podcasting about like a PowerPoint presentation, how to use PowerPoint, but The Last Jedi or the latest Star Wars movie is like happening tomorrow, don't hesitate to talk about it. It's like, I'm really freaking excited about the next Star Wars movie or the next, Jurassic World movie or the next Netflix Marvel series. Don't spend too much time on it, but make it part of your show. Make it part of your podcast, because especially if it's in the back of your mind, the more you try to suppress it, the more it's going to take your mind off of what you really wanted to talk about. So like, get it out there. Talk about the movie that you want to see. All right, so back to X-Men. I'm talking about this because X-Men is the most popular title in the Marvel comics, in the published Marvel comics. The funny thing is they are as much as an anti-hero type of group as anything. They are not like Superman or Batman or Iron Man or the Avengers or even the Fantastic Four. The X-Men are like rejects. They are the most popular rejects in superhero history. And that was made by Stan Lee and the Marvel Comics people. That was by design. From what I've read, back in the 60s, they wanted to... They got tired of like Captain America. Captain America sales were kind of slowing down. And it's like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. Perfect. And Stan Lee said, or their group, they decided, what if we made heroes that reflect more of what real people are about, especially our target demographic, which are young teenagers, late elementary school, all the way through young adults. That's their target demographic for comic books. And during that age, you're like, there's puberty, adolescence, all this awkward stuff going to high school, and you're just not sure of yourself. So the Marvel Comics group, they created a team of superheroes that were like that. They were unsure of themselves. They didn't even dress properly. They had funky costumes. Their costumes didn't really match. Okay, first of all, the biggest hero, the most popular character of that group, and maybe arguably in comic book, is Wolverine. Hugh Jackman looks like a movie star, but he's good for the movies. But the real Wolverine is actually this old, scrappy dude. He's semi-feral. He's part animal. People don't know where he came from. And he was 5 feet 3 inches tall, but he was built like a brick because he was engineered to be that way. So, imagine the star of the X-Men is this 5'3" guy compared to 6 foot something Superman, 6 foot something Batman, 5'10" Wonder Woman, and all of a sudden the X-Men and Wolverine, Logan, are the most popular thing in comic books. You pretty much put an X-Men title on anything, it'll sell. Last year, one of the best movies of the year, not just comic book movies, was Logan with Wolverine. So my point of all this is you don't have to be a quote-unquote personality type. You don't have to be a Hollywood type. You don't have to be a salesman type. You don't have to have the perfect voice. You don't have to look a certain way. You just have to be passionate about something, want to talk about something to the point where it's if it's somebody asked you about your favorite movie or your favorite book, how you can just keep going, talk about it for like an hour, 2 hours. And that's what podcasting is. It's a perfect example is a golf pro or somebody who's just been golfing for years. You ask them, how do I swing the ball? And they can probably sit with you for like 2 hours easy and show you every little nuance on how to swing a ball, swing a golf club properly. There's like 100 things to think about when swinging a golf ball. Can you imagine? Or swinging a golf club? Jeez. So again, this is unedited, unscripted. I'm just kind of whatever's coming into my mind, I'm putting up there, and I will edit later. That's another thing is if you don't focus so much on the actual logistics and equipment of this stuff to the point where once you start recording, you have lost the passion for the topic that you're going to talk about. If you have to go through that ritual every time, you need to streamline your process or simplify it, which was what I did. So let's get to the equipment. I keep it simple. I use Audacity software. It's AUDACITY, and you can download it. I think it's only for Windows. And if you don't have Windows, if you have a Mac, GarageBand works fine. I've recorded audio on GarageBand before, and it comes with every Mac. So the thing with Audacity, here's a little tip: is the interface is very much the old Windows ways, where it's not as intuitive as it could be. But once you learn maybe 12 or 15 shortcuts or tricks, it becomes much easier. It's also making your input device play happy with the software. If you have a mic, depending on the kind of mic you have. So we'll talk about microphones later. So Audacity is, you download it, it's free, it's light on your system, which means it won't, chances of it crashing is very minimal because it takes up very little resources. It's almost like Windows 3, Windows 3.1 type of software. It's very, very traditional and not very complicated, but it'll do the job. I actually experimented with recording audio on Adobe Premiere Elements, which is more, like a step up supposedly, but it's Premiere Elements, and that's the lighter version of Adobe Premiere. It's affordable. It's like $80. I think $60 if you can get it off of a sale, like Amazon or something. So I tried recording audio on Adobe Premiere Elements, and there were so many buttons you have to push and set up and all that stuff. Yes, the quality, if you get it right, the audio quality is a little bit better than Audacity, but it wasn't worth the hassle of setting it up. If you tried Adobe Premiere Elements, chances are you've run into these problems. But if you perfect it, it's like Photoshop. Once you get good at Photoshop, you can fly with it. So same thing with the Premiere Elements. But going back to Audacity, anybody can use this. Anybody with Windows can use this. And once you learn, here's a quick shortcut key, is hit Shift R to record. And it'll just start recording. And then hit, hit the space bar to stop. Very easy. What else? So I record on Audacity. There is, once you install it, you will not be able to export to MP3 format. So MP3 format is probably the happy medium between really, really high quality studio recording for, like if you're recording a music album, or recording on a really bad system, or on a cassette tape recorder. If anybody out there remembers those, Audacity is good enough. You're hearing my recording on using Audacity, and I exported it as an MP3 file. So, but the thing is, Audacity, once you install it, you have to download an MP3. Exporter, and it's in the instructions on installing Audacity. So just, and it's not that hard. Just be patient with it. That's another thing, is you got to be patient with podcasts. You will make a ton of mistakes at the beginning, to the point where you almost want to quit. And the thing is, the better you get at it, the more you want to experiment with new techniques. Like I started with audio, and then I go, I want to do some YouTube vlogging videos. So I switched from just the audio only, and I integrated my HD video camera into it. And that was an adventure in itself. And then I wanted to step it up and record using a DSLR, which is yet another set of new headaches. So I will still be doing DSLR quality vlogs, but they're going to be shorter format, about 10 to 20 minutes, as opposed to like the 1 to 2 hour stuff I do on audio podcast only. The nice thing with audio podcast is also the editing. So let's say I flubbed, or I said a cuss word, or I said something stupid, or I said something that should have been stuck together with something I said like 10 minutes ago. With audio, you can splice that stuff up and edit it and move it around, and the listener will barely tell, or will not be able to tell at all, that you've edited, move stuff around. If you do it with video, good luck, because you're going to see the jump in, what your position, your visual position jumps. So for anybody who's never done audio podcast, who's thinking about doing video vlogs, I suggest start with audio podcast, just to get it, just to get you used to speaking, because speaking is more important than being visual, unless you're doing, like makeup tips on, really visual stuff. You're snowboarding, you're using a drone. So speaking. Here's an aside. George Lucas, again back to Star Wars, he's famous as saying the audio is 50% of the quality of the movie. You take the audio out, you take John Williams' music out of Star Wars, and you have a boring, average movie with a whole bunch of spaceships and special effects. So get the audio down, but it's also the content of your audio. So it's what you say. What else? So I'm recording this on Audacity. The microphone that I'm recording to is a USB mic, and it's called a Lyx Pro, Lyx Pro. I found it I did a bunch of research on affordable microphones, and I found it on I think on Amazon for $60. Now keep in mind, I used to have a garage band, like a two-piece band in high school and early college. and I knew a guy who owned a music store, so I would get like professional microphones that were normally like $300 or $400, and I would get them for like cost because I knew the guy. So I was lucky, and then I still have those microphones, but they have a different plug. Instead of a USB plug or a like a stereo, what is it called? A 1/4 millimeter audio jack. The professional microphones, they use an XLR plug, which is what like highfalutin concerts. So that's what they use. So I have 3 microphones that are worth about $300 or $400 that they're XLR mics, and they're great for live band playing. When you're a rock and roll band or whatever, they're great for live recordings and or live shows, and they're great for professional recordings. But they actually don't work well with recording simple recording to a computer. So stick with microphones that have a native USB plug that you can just plug straight into your computer. So what I'm using is Lyx Pro. It's made by the company called Lyx, Lyx. I'll add that to the show notes, just like with everything else I said. And here's another little story about this. So I bought my one Lyx Pro mic, and it works perfectly. So I went to their Facebook page, and I go, okay, let me follow them to see if they offer other products like headphones and stuff. And it just happens that when I was visiting them one day, their website isn't popular because they are not like Yeti or Blue Ice or Shure or Audio Technica or all these the more expensive microphones. They're offering really affordable microphones with really good quality, but they're not popular. They only had 200 people following their Facebook page. So I go, well, you know what? I like the product, so I followed it. One day they had a contest. They said, just comment on here and we'll enter you for a raffle for a free Lyx microphone. I go, okay, fine. So I just commented, and then I won. So the guy contacted me and said, yeah, okay, what kind of Lyx microphone do you have? They gave me like a choice of 3 different microphones, and I chose one. Now I have 2. I have one as a backup, and I actually use one on my Mac Mini to record real songs, like rough drafts. So I if I'm thinking of a song idea or something, I'll plug that into my Mac Mini. It works totally fine. Okay, another tip is have some water next to you, which is I totally forgot. I was so excited to start this podcast. So give me 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm back, and I have my big. It was just across the room, so I have my. Big mug of ice water. Good for my voice, I think. Now, the funny thing is I include all this stuff in my podcast. I talk about, there's an airplane behind me. My cat just jumped on my lap. All this stuff. The funny thing is you think that would be embarrassing to talk about during a live podcast, but I get a lot of comments that said, I like the fact that you told us when you were drinking water. I like the fact that you said that it was like 2:00 in the morning and you've had a long day, and if you're garbled a little bit, it's because you were getting work done, and you had time to do the podcast. People like that stuff because it relates to what they go through on a daily basis, and it shows that you're a human being. You have flaws. You're vulnerable. You're not. You're accessible. That's one of the. That's why I love documentaries so much. It's as real as you can get. But it's not Hollywood anymore. And what happens is, let's say you are podcasting about what's the most popular thing out. It's always Star Wars. It's always going to be Star Wars. So the most popular thing out of Star Wars. How many people have reviewed the latest Star Wars movie? As soon as it comes out, give it about a day, and you have like 200 podcasts and vlogs about The Last Jedi. How do you separate yourself from those people? So what I do by myself is my latest podcast was I noticed nobody talked about Buddhism or spirituality. Nobody talked about Luke on the island, what he was going through as a sort of like a Zen teacher. All they focused on were the spaceships and the dialogue and that the funkiness of what Leia did and how Finn and Rose, their sequence on the casino planet had nothing to do with the movie. It's like more logistical stuff. And everybody talked about it. Every other review was about those, like there was like, and Snoke, what happened to Snoke, and every other podcast, they went through the exact same bullet points to the point where after I listened to 5 podcasts or 5 YouTube videos talking about The Last Jedi, it's like I know what the next guy's going to say about it. So why even bother? So what I did was I realized that they were not talking about talking about Luke being like a Buddhist master or like a Zen teacher. And so that's what I focused on my podcast. And I'm hoping, so far I've gotten 50 something downloads on audio and about 35 views on video. And I'm actually happy about that because my podcast was 2 hours long. Now you multiply that. I'm going back to the Steve Jobs thing, what he said about Apple. It's like when they were creating the Mac 2, they said if you can shave off 10 seconds off the startup time, and then you multiply that by how many people actually use this Mac and how many times they're going to start this computer during the lifetime of the computer of them owning it, you're talking about thousands of years of time saved by you shaving off 10 seconds. So flip that around. I do a 2-hour podcast, and how many people? Let's say 35 plus 55. That's 90 people listening to it for 2 hours. That's what is that? 90 times 2 is 180 hours. 180 hours of people getting worth from what I did. So even if it took me 5 hours to totally produce it, including the video editing and all that stuff, that translated to 180 hours. My 5 hours translated to under 180 hours of people getting worth from it. You don't have to have 1 million views on YouTube. You don't, as long as you're doing it because you're geeking out about it and you're passionate about it. But if you're trying to make money off of it, then that's a totally different animal, and it's more like the long game. You will probably make money off of it. I just remembered. Okay, so I'll get to Making Biscuits, the charity that I work with and I donate to. So the original reason I created the Daily Night podcast is to help raise money and awareness for a cat rescue that I'm supporting, Making Biscuits Cat Rescue. So I told Christy, my business partner, and also the woman who founded the nonprofit, I said, yeah, I'm starting this podcast and I'm hoping to put, promotional thing in there for Making Biscuits. And she goes, oh, nobody will ever listen. It's like, how many people do you have to get to so you can have like you get your AdSense dollars from YouTube. So with YouTube, you have to have 1,000 every 1,000 views on YouTube, you get around $1 with AdSense. So in order to make $1,000, you have to get 1 million views. So I'm not Disney, and I'm not going to have 14 million people looking at my videos. So we figured it's never gonna not gonna amount to much. Maybe somebody will donate $5, $10 to the charity after having listened to my website or something, right? So one day, more than a year after I started the podcast, I was on my like 40th episode, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna keep going because it's fun, and you can tell I haven't stopped talking yet. I don't know how many minutes this is. So a woman saw my Suicide Squad drinking game video, and it was like a Friday night or Saturday night, and she was at home with her boyfriend looking for something fun to do. And so they ran into my Suicide Squad drinking game. It's if you go to the Daily Night on YouTube, I'll have a link to it. She liked it, and she watched the whole video until she saw the promotional ad for Making Biscuits Cat Rescue. Her name is Kaylin. Thank you, Kaylin, if you're listening. So she contacted Making Biscuits, and she says, I just started a new job. I'm in a good way right now. How can I donate $400 to Making Biscuits? Now, at that time, I only got 86? No, not even that. Maybe 70 views on that video. But one of those people decided she's going to donate $400. That's to begin with. She continued to donate like $200 the next month, another $200 the month after that, another $300, until like recently her jobs changed, and she's trying to get back on her feet and stuff like that. But from that one video that I had fun in, and if you see it, I'm dressed in my bathrobe, with wearing a Star Wars tie, drinking orange juice that I pretended was mimosa. And it was fun editing it. It was fun adding the elevator music to it. It was just fun, right? It was still work, but it was fun. I didn't know what was going to happen with it. I just did it because everybody else was kind of bagging on Suicide Squad. And I go, oh, you know what? Yeah, I have some bullet points I want to talk about. But let's make it fun. Let's make it parody. And from that, I think it generated, just from that one donation, one donor, generated, I think, $800 or $1,000 of donation, just actual money. And from that point on, it's like, okay, who knows, right? Lightning in a bottle. If you do it enough times, what if there's 10 other Kalins out there? That's $8,000 to $10,000. Just from me blabbering about superheroes and comic books and movies and whatever else comes into my mind. So maybe that's another point I wanted to add is if you do something, if you can integrate a charity or a nonprofit or something that is about you giving or donating to some cause, attach that to your podcast, and it'll add more value to it, and you won't have to focus on yourself so much. Does that make sense? It's like the thing is, my opinion is there's a little bit of narcissism in podcasting. It's like you have to decide, okay, I'm good enough. I think people will listen to me, even though my friends wouldn't even notice. But I think I have something valuable to say, or maybe I just want to get it out of my system. It's like karaoke. Imagine, people love karaoke for the most part, and it's because they're out there, they're exhaling, they're letting it out. Podcast is the same thing. Vlogging is the same thing. It's like karaoke without music. Okay, so now I'm getting a brain fart. Let me toggle my computer. I'm half an hour into it. So if you're still listening to this, God bless you. Because so let me get to the more tangible, usable stuff in terms of podcasting. So Audacity is the software, and we're gonna go back to this. Hopefully, we're gonna have a Q&A session with Adam or some other thing. So if you have any questions, email me, or wherever this is posted, write in the comments. If you notice, I only have 14 subscribers on my YouTube page. I don't care. Actually, this reminds me of another story. So, I was on my 25th podcast, and I'm like, it's like, who's noticing this stuff? I was like, nobody comments. That's another thing. People don't comment. They still listen, but they don't comment. So I'm thinking, I was like, am I wasting my time doing this? I get an email from or a comment from a listener out in like Germany, and they said, sometimes when I'm not feeling good about myself, I turn on your podcast, and it both takes my mind away from me feeling bad about myself, and I get entertained at the same time. And we have the same taste in movies and comic books and superheroes and all that. And you keep me company for an hour or 2 hours, and then I fall asleep. Instead of doing something stupid or contemplating something stupid or thinking about something that might lead to doing something stupid. So that's one person. And, there's that cliche, if I can only help one person in the world, it's whatever I do is worth it. Guess what? That one person who actually commented, I bet you there are dozens of others just like that person out there in the world who are looking for podcasts that talk about something they're interested in. Now, keep in mind, we have 6.5, 7 billion people on Earth, and half of them have access to the internet. The chances of a bunch of people listening to your podcast, even if you don't see it in your statistics, it's staggering. And also, people who are sharing, they download it once and then they just play the downloaded audio for somebody else. So now, from that point, from when that person in Germany emailed me about that, I go, wait a minute, how many people are in the world that are actually listening to my podcast? So on my WordPress site, it's called what is it, statistics? It's part of like WordPress statistics. You can actually tell not just the podcast, but I will post my podcast on my website. So I wanted to see how many people from the world were visiting my website, and it's like name a city around the world, there's somebody from there listening or reading my stuff. So and the fact that it's like I haven't podcasted in 10 months because I was trying to streamline and minimize the effort that it took for me to get to the mic and start talking. I had to make it so it's quick. Like setting up for this, what I'm recording right now, it took like 3 minutes because I had my gear set up already, and it's on Audacity, very low maintenance type software. It's going to record. And that's it. So let's see, Lyx. And the funny thing is I'm doing this podcast simply with Audacity, a USB microphone, maybe, you know what, a mic stand. Something that will separate the microphone from your desk, because the desk, if you have your microphone sitting on your desk or touching any surface that you will have contact with, you'll get this stuff during the podcast, just knocking and whatever, and see. So you need to suspend your microphone somehow. There's a whole bunch of different ways, some really low cost. You can even do it yourself. You get one of those clamp-on lamps, like a desk lamp that's clamped on. It's got the arm and the swinging arm, and you jury rig the tip of it so you can add your microphone clip and your microphone to it. So also microphone tip for popping, popping. You can use the squishy, spongy microphone, spit cover. You can get them for like $2 on Amazon. If you can I think you get a 4-pack for $8. It's an add-on item. So if that's not enough for you, the foam microphone cover, and it's not enough for me. What I do is I take a single sheet of Kleenex tissue. And just that one sheet, I don't fold it or anything. I kind of like cut around it so it's a tiny little, let's see, about 1.5 inches square. And I put that on top of the microphone, and then I put the anti-pop filter on top of that. So there's another layer. And then if you still have more popping, then there's another clip-on filter for it, another like foam thing. So again, trial and error. Depends on who you are, how far your mouth is to the microphone. just play around with it. The thing is, if you are talking about a topic that you're absolutely passionate about, you're not gonna mind too much the retakes and the stuff. Just come up with something new, So here's something: I have done this. I've lost count of how many times I've done this, where I had an idea for how I'm gonna talk about a certain movie or a topic, and I go through like 3 or 4 takes to the point where on the 5th take, I am discussing this movie in a totally different way than I was at the very beginning. And I wish I had recorded that, included that with the director's cut with the outtakes. So what else? And then okay, so back to the hardware recording. You save it as an MP3 file, export it from Audacity. What I do is I save it as an MP3 file in its raw as format as possible, and then I import it into Adobe Premiere Elements. Again, this is like between $60 and $80. It's like Photoshop Elements. It's like entry level. If you're not gonna be doing, editing blockbuster movies, you can totally just use Adobe Premiere Elements. The nice thing is, Premiere Elements has way less buttons than Adobe Premiere Pro, and sometimes all those buttons are just a distraction, and then it's like you're working the machine more than you are focusing on the content. So I stick with Adobe Premiere Elements. There's less stuff to worry about. It's very similar to GarageBand for the Mac. And there on Premiere Elements, that's where I edit, including the audio and the video. And what I do is, if I know I'm going to also do a video version of it, I will work on the video part first. Get everything perfect, the overlays and the intro, the music and all that. Get it perfect. And then I export it as a video first. Then I watch the video on YouTube. And if I like the video, I don't need to edit it. Then I go back and I export the whole thing as an audio MP3 file. That way you're not like, and I've done this before. I've learned from my mistakes. As I exported it first as an MP3 file, and then I exported it as a video, and I watched the video, and I'm going, wow, I need to edit a lot of this stuff out. Probably like I'm going to do with this rough cut right here. So I had to go back and edit the video, and then I had to re-export the audio and then upload it to the internet. So it was like more work. So if you know you're going to do something in both video and audio podcast, get the video perfect first. Watch yourself with the video, close your eyes and listen to yourself with the video. When that's down, then go back to your, like Adobe Premiere or GarageBand and export the MP3 file. So what else? You don't need super high quality, since what we do is content creation. It's not like we're creating a final movie, and it's not like, people are actually going to pay a ton of money to watch it, and we're going to be doing it, creating content on a regular basis, multiple times a week. You don't have to save it as the highest quality. You can save it as a medium MP3 export. Again, test it. You can test it both using your regular computer speakers. Oh, that's another thing with testing. Test it on your desktop computer, your laptop. Test it on your phone. And if you have an Android phone, you need to go to a friend's iPhone and test it on their iPhone, and vice versa. Test it listening using earphones, earbuds, headsets. Just so you want to make sure that there's a happy compromise in terms of its output on different devices. Because if you're on a desktop, a lot of desktop speaker systems have a really strong, healthy bass sound coming from them. And if it sounds perfect on a desktop computer, and then you listen to it on a cell phone with tiny speakers, sometimes it's like, oh, that's totally not what I wanted. So what happens is you have to adjust your audio so that it satisfies as many devices, at least legibly, right? And if you need to focus on quality, then test it on the device that you think is gonna people are gonna use the most. Okay, so my phone is ringing. See, that's another unforeseen thing. Turn everything off. If you're gonna make a checklist of stuff that you need to mute before you start working or before you start recording, and also make sure that nobody's around. So that's why I like to podcast like middle of the night. Everybody's asleep, and there's no more traffic, and it's the world's quiet, and like the only thing that's going to interrupt you is your cat. Jumping to cats, I have a cat. She has been seen a few times on my video vlogs, jumping up and all that stuff. Keep that stuff in there, folks. Because what happens is, the more uniqueness and the more elements of your life that you include in your vlogs, as long as it's and it's not NSFW, just it's PG rated. Keep it so as many people can view it without getting insulted by your vlogs or podcast. Include it in there, because what happens is somebody might be watching your vlog or listening to your podcast, and they're like, "This is kind of boring," and then they hear a meow in the background. It's like, and they go, "Wait, what? I love cats. What was that? That's a cat sound?" And then if you start talking about your cat, then those people, now don't talk about your cat too long, but just talk about your cat a little bit, like a couple of minutes. Now the people who love cats it's like, oh, this is a cat person. I can relate to him just a little bit more. He understands my problems. He understands, like you always need paper towels if you have dependents or animals. You can never not have enough paper towels. Anybody out there who's a parent knows that, right? If we can strap on a paper towel dispenser to our bodies and just have it ready wherever we are in the house, I think it would be it'd be easier to keep the house clean. So now I'm 42 minutes in, and actually I use this to see how far I'm into the podcast, and for some reason it triggers something in my mind. It's like, oh, you have to talk about that before the hour runs out. So what else? That's pretty much it. Have a decent speaker system on your computer, or you not really, because what happens is most people who are going to be listening to your podcast are going to be listening to it on like discount speakers, whatever speakers their computers came with. So also listen to it in your car. Oh my god, I totally forgot. So anybody out there who can Bluetooth their phones to their car stereo system, and it depends on the cars, it totally changes the dynamic of the podcast. Is what sounds like a tinny little voice on your cell phone can sound like a robust velvety vinyl record on like a luxury vehicle once you Bluetooth it, because they have really awesome like Bose speakers. So test it, and then mention it to as many friends as you have, your friends and family, and don't care if they look at you sideways. Oh, you're a podcaster. You must, sleep in your mom's attic and be on the couch all day, stuff like that. No, it's you should be passionate enough about what you're doing so that you don't care about the negative people out there, what they say about it. Just keep going, because what happens again, you meet 100 people, if 99 of them poo-poo what you're doing, and then one person really digs it, guess who you're talking to at the cocktail party? Like all of a sudden, there's a reason to go there, right? So, I just remembered. Okay, here's the whole reason I started this whole thing was because I actually wanted to do a podcast with my geek. I belong to a geek group, and there's a bunch of us that want to talk about movies, and so we started this thing as a group of 8, and we wanted to be in front of the camera and talk about stuff. But what happens is people's schedules change. And unless you're in the showbiz business, you live up in Hollywood or Burbank, it's harder to get people to do entertainment stuff to schedule. So what happens was the group of 8 became a group of 4, became a group of 3, and then there was just me. And even though I wanted to be behind the scenes, producing this stuff, editing this stuff, writing the scripts for it, sooner or later I had to be it. I had to be on the mic in front of the camera. And if you look at any of my videos, you can tell it's like I don't want to be in front of the camera. I am not made to be in front of the camera. But guess what? I have no choice, and I have something to say, and I don't care. So what happens is you put yourself out there, and there's a lot of self-consciousness going on. Self-conscious. Oh, I might, I need to do this and do that. So if you notice on a lot of my videos, I'm wearing a tie, like a business shirt and a tie. And I even have my Clark Kent glasses. Actually, those glasses are gamma ray glasses that help me. It helps with the eye fatigue from looking at your monitor. I actually don't need reading glasses. I have like 2013 vision. But whenever I put those glasses on, I'm like in a podcast mood or in a vlog mood, and I know, okay, I'm in business right now. So it's kind of like a cool superhero thing. Plus, my business partner said, you know what, you should put those glasses on when you take a picture for your professional LinkedIn profile or whatever, and I have that. On any given day, I'm not wearing glasses. I'm because I work at home. I'm wearing a cutoff T-shirt and shorts, and some of these, even John Campea, he's a famous vlogger. One of his he's vlogged like I don't know how many times, thousands of podcasts and vlogs. And on one of them, they caught him like he stood up to go get a drink of water, and there's a mirror in front of him, and it caught him like he was wearing his black boxers. He wasn't wearing pants, and it was caught on camera. And he goes, well, thank God I wear boxers and not briefs. And it became one of the most popular videos in his ensemble of videos because he was caught with his pants down. Again, if you're comfortable with yourself, if you mean well, if you're not out there trying to bash somebody with your podcast or your vlog, if you're trying to do something to entertain and maybe something of worth that will also maybe help a person take their mind off of stuff, that's what Mark Hamill said. It's like, how lucky am I to be doing something, Star Wars, and to know that I am helping to give somebody 2 hours away from all that crap of life, that they can leave that and go see my movie, and for 2 hours they will be able to get away from it, without having to, get drunk or do drugs, just an escapism. And he says, and I get paid for that stuff, and it's the same thing with podcasting. I think, I do my best not to bash anything unless it's a really, really bad movie and everybody knows it anyway, like Suicide Squad. But there's always, there's always something positive out there. So what else? I'm looking at my equipment. Right now. Haha, double entendre. Let's see, what else? Speakers. Oh, a script. Okay. You need to have, once you get going, and I'm just riffing right here. But once you get to the formal thing, you're going to be making this on a regular basis. It's just like, I hate to say this, it's just like pets, old people, and children. People want a specific pattern. They get used to it. So once you get into a pattern, I mean, you can totally freestyle your what you say, but the setting up of it, like the intro to your podcast. Try to keep that consistent because it's a familiarity. When people hear that opening tune, the intro music, they start getting into the mood of like, let me hang out on the couch, or let me get into that, getting ready for this guy to be talking to me for an hour or two. In order to do that, you have to have your process down. So We'll talk about that more. That's going to be more details in the future. But unless you're riffing like I am right now, freestyling, unscripted, have a script even before you talk on the microphone. Write down. What I do is I actually write a written blog, before I record. I would do it days ahead. Like I'll do a review of a movie, and then I'll write my written review, put it on my WordPress website, my blog, and then I will reread what I wrote, and from that I will create a show notes, like an outline using Microsoft Word or whatever word processing. You guys use whatever you want. So you have those show notes, and the nice thing about those is don't get too detailed with the show notes. Do bullet points, because you want to be able to ad-lib some of it so it sounds organic, so it sounds like it's coming from you, like you really know what you're talking about. And the bullet points are just to remind you, okay, make sure you talk about these topics, don't skip any of them. Talk about it in this sequence so that it's easier for the listener to follow what you're talking about instead of jumping around like I am right now. Take a drink of water. So it's, water or whatever your beverage of choice is very important. Wet your whistle. Okay. So what else? And then we'll get more into details in later episodes. I'm gonna do more in-depth stuff about how to set up your WordPress website to include your podcast as well as your YouTube embedded video. I think that's it. That's it for now. My mind is tired. Because this is like a performance, by the way. So I haven't done it a lot, and I was in a garage band, and we would play in front of more like family and friends, and people would come over to the house and watch us practice and just play. Podcasting is very similar to performing on stage, except you're doing it in the privacy of your own home or studio, and chances are nobody else is going to be watching you unless you're doing it live, like Adam is. But it's an exhalation. It's good for the soul. Exhaling is good. Inhaling is good too, but if you hold it in, it's not good. It's not healthy for you. So to me, podcasting is exhaling, and it's healthy for me. And I actually miss it. It's like exercise. If you exercise enough, and if you skip a week or a day, you miss it. So, can you imagine? I didn't podcast for 10 months, and it's like, because I couldn't figure out how to make it simpler. I just wanted to be able to just talk in front of the camera and not push too many buttons and not have a million different setups and have to have the most expensive system. So, and that's it. That's the basics of blogging. It doesn't cost that much. Podcasting. It doesn't cost that much. Only when you want to experiment with other stuff will it cost more. Oh, and I got to talk about trying to get sponsors and people to help you out with the expenses of it, or give you equipment to review and even give you freebies. So there's a bunch of other people who totally specialize in that stuff, like what's his name, Sean Cannell or Cannell. He's an expert on that stuff, and I'll include links to that to his YouTube channel. The nice thing about this, see, I'm recording this right now. I don't even need to edit it. I'm just gonna clean up the audio so it's balanced, so you don't have to turn up your volume all the way to 11 just to hear me, because right now it's kind of low, so I need to equalize it in Adobe Premiere Elements. I could do it in Audacity also. It's just easier in Premiere Elements. And then export it as an MP3 file and then post it. And then the nice thing is I'm going to also post it on LinkedIn. And repurposing. And then it's not for this show, but there have been shows where I spent 2 hours and I talked about 8 different topics, and they all lasted about 15 minutes each. So the nice thing is I was able to edit down those segments, so I had 8 15-minute topics to distribute around the internet. So And that's it. We're talking about statistics also, how to know if what you're doing is worth it besides you just, having fun with it. What else? That's it. Yeah. So it's 54 going on 55 minutes, and until I come up with something new, I'll post this on Adam's group. And thank you, Adam, for coming up with the idea, or being just lighting a fire to get me going, because I was trying to figure out, like, I need to do a show like this. I've been thinking about this for like a year now. I need to do a show like this, but I never got around to it. You know what it is? Adam is like the spotter. He's like, I want to go to the gym. I want to work out. I want to lift these weights. And it's like, well, if it's just up to me, I will opt for the juice bar. And, I'll do a couple of sets, and then but if you have a friend who's going with you, if you have a spotter, then they tell you, you need to do, 30 sit-ups right now. You need to do, 10 pull-ups right now. Right now. No, I'm going to keep talking to you and bug you until you do those pull-ups, or, those crunches. And now there's the impetus. Thank you, Adam. And I will talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye.